And so as I call your name, if you could just confirm if you do have a name on the screen, if that name is correct. And then let me know who you're representing here today, whether you're the applicant, owner, neighboring property owner, or someone else connected to the project. So I'll start with, looks like Mike Misla. Sorry, Mike, if you could unmute.
Hi, I'm Mike Misla. I own the business and real estate where Skyline Chili's occupied, and my brother Steve and I own the corner at 1202 East McMillan, where we're attempting to put a Chipotle development on that corner of McMillan and Victory.
Gotcha. So you're the owner of the adjacent property where Skyline is located and the owner of the subject property for this application.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Sure. I have someone under just iPhone. Yeah, if you could unmute, sir.
That could be me. It's Jonathan Evans, civil engineer for the project.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
And Ann McBride. Hi, Ann.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Welcome. I know you're the applicant here.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back. All right. And we also have Trey Sheldon from our city zoning department.
Good morning to you all. Familiar faces.
Welcome. Morning. All right. Are we waiting on anyone else to join us on the applicant owner side before we get started?
No, we're not.
Okay. Let's go ahead and jump into it. This is the March 20th, 2024 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the city of Cincinnati. I'll be presiding over the hearing today. Case before us today is case number ZH20240016. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any potential opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If we did have anyone here from the public, they'd have an opportunity to speak after the applicant had presented its case. I'll hear from the zoning department and Mr. Sheldon to provide any testimony if he would like. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties with Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly. But to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, last thing to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. You intend on providing any testimony here today. The zoning code requires that I swear you in before you provide that testimony. So if you know you'd like to provide some testimony, if you could take yourself off of mute at this time, raise your right hand. I'll need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. All right. Who will be taking the lead for us here on the applicant's presentation?
That would be me, David. So for the record, my name's Ann McBride. My address is 5721 Dragon Way, Suite 300, Cincinnati 45227. And I am representing 2516 East McMillan, LLC. They are the owners of the property at the northeast corner of Victory and McMillan, which is under consideration for today. The property contains 0.383 acres, and it was up until late last year, actually 2 parcels, and the owner has consolidated it since they purchased it again toward the end of last year. The property is contained within the CCM Community Commercial Mixed District. Right now, there are 2 vacant buildings on the property. There's a former Taco Casa, which is directly at the corner of Victory and McMillan. And then there's a second building north of that was formerly used as an Ace Cash Express service. Currently, there are 2 full curb cuts on McMillan and 1 full curb cut on Victory for the parcel. Adjacent uses to the site include McDonald's directly across Victory Parkway, the Skyline that you heard about directly to the east of the site. There's a Marathon gas station catty corner at the intersection of Victory and McMillan. And then there's a large office building directly across McMillan. I wish they hadn't put those two names so close together. And there's a church then to the north of the site. The proposal by the applicant is to demo the two existing buildings and to construct a new Chipotle restaurant on the site. It would have 2,384 square feet, and it would have a pickup window on the west side of the building. And I would stress that a pickup window, as David, I think we've discussed on other cases, is different than a drive-through window in that there is no menu order board. The orders are made either online or by phone, and they simply come and they pick up the food. So there is a distinction, obviously, between a pickup window and a drive-through window. And again, has to do with timing, because they can time the orders better if it's a pickup window and so forth. So I just wanted to mention that.
Is the suggestion there that pickup windows, there's less queuing and less idling?
Yes, I believe that there is, and it's a more controlled, because we're telling you can pick your order up at 10 o'clock this morning. Well, who wants Chipotle at 10 o'clock? But you know what I'm saying. You can pick it up at a certain time as opposed to a long line, a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts where it backs out onto the public streets.
Sure.
Also, they are proposing to do an outdoor dining area, which would be on the south side of the building, facing McMillan, and it's about 400 square feet in area. There are going to be 16 parking spaces actually on this parcel, and then there is a shared covenant parking for excess parking that's available on the Skyline site directly to the north and to the east of this property. And I think that reciprocal easement has been submitted to your department for review several weeks ago. I think Trey was nice enough to do that for us. We are going to be eliminating 2 curb cuts on this, which will make only 1 full curb cut to this site. And they will be having an easement access through the Skyline to get out onto Victory. They're going to keep the 1 curb cut on McMillan. They are eliminating the 2 curb cuts that are closest to that intersection, which is a big improvement for traffic, obviously, in the area. They are providing pedestrian connection to the existing sidewalk on McMillan. They're going to be putting in, obviously, new landscaping. They're going to reuse the sign frame that is there now. And they're also going to be putting in a new waste enclosure in the northeast corner of the site. What exists now is well, at any rate, it's going to be replaced. Let's just put it that way. But to allow for the redevelopment to move forward, this morning, we are asking for consideration of a variance, 2 conditional uses, and special exceptions. But I have lots of information on each one. So with regards to the variance request, it is from section 1409-09, which requires a maximum front yard setback of 12 feet. So we are proposing a setback on McMillan of 40.13 feet. The building itself is 28 by 85. And again, this is a small site, and the width of that site on McMillan is only 85.85 feet. And so we're also proposing 194.4 foot setback on Victory. Again, as I mentioned, it's a small site. It has double frontage. We do need to provide for an adequate lane and stacking for the pickup window, and also space for the outdoor dining area, which will be facing McMillan. Both of those are features that Chipotle customers have come to expect and enjoy at that particular dining establishment. The building is sited consistent with surrounding retail uses in the area, and I'm thinking specifically about McDonald's. I'm thinking about the C-store that goes with the Marathon and the adjacent Skyline. In terms of the standards for variances, just for the record, per section 1455.16, we would offer that there are specific conditions to this lot. It's given the limited size of the parcel at 0.38 acres, the limited width of the parcel, which is 85.85 feet, the double frontage of the site, along with the extensive CCM district requirements, makes redevelopment of this parcel for any use really kind of difficult. So in order to create a use that is economically viable, it would be very difficult. So we are asking for consideration of that variance. The variance requested is pertaining to the one maximum building setback and the result of site conditions which are not ordinarily found in the CCM district. And they were not created by the owner. The parcel is what the parcel is. The granting of the variance will not adversely impact the rights of other property owners, nor will it adversely impact the community character of the area. It is within keeping of the intent and spirit of the zoning code. The applicant has worked diligently with Mr. Evans and others, DOTE and so forth, to develop a site plan that works both for Chipotle, but also for the city. Moving on to the two conditional uses. The first one is from section 1409.13. That is to allow a pickup window to be adjacent to a front yard, which is Victory Parkway. The pickup window, again, we've talked about that, it is only a pickup window. There's no order board there. Currently, and I submitted some photographs, and I'm not sure exactly how well it came out, but the Taco Casa building that is there today has a drive-up window in that almost exact same vicinity on their building on Victory. So I would offer that, although that building is coming down. Again, it's a narrow lot. In order to be able to provide a drive-through or a pickup rather lane with adequate stacking, it needs to be on that west side to provide site circulation, both vehicular and pedestrian. We're orienting the parking on the east side of the building so that there is as little cross through with that stacking lane as possible. We are also asking for a conditional use from section 1419-21B, which deals with the location of the outdoor dining area. This is kind of interesting because the dining area, as I mentioned, is 400 square feet. It's not covered, but it is required to be at least 100 feet to an R district. And that's measured from the corner of the property. So the corner of the site is actually 84 feet from an RM 1.2 district, which is not used as a residential use. The building's closest corner to that R1-1.2 district is 168.5 feet. The actual outdoor eating area on the front of the building is 246 feet from the R1-1.2 district. In addition to the considerable distance between them, there's also a topographic change of about 5 feet. The Chipotle sits about 5 feet lower than that restaurant. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I want to point out that the owner of that R1.2 property, RM 1.2 property is St. Anthony of Padua, and they have written a letter of support for this request. And I think that was submitted as a part of your packet. Relative to the standards for conditional uses, the requested conditional use does allow for the proposed locations of pickup windows and outdoor dining in other locations if it is specifically provided for by sections 1409-13 and 1419-21B, which we are requesting today as the conditional use. Moving on, special exceptions. The first one is from 1409-25, which is to allow parking in a side yard. We are proposing, as I mentioned, 16 parking spaces on the side of the east side of the building. Placing 16 spaces on the site, 12 on the east side of the building, 4 of which would be north of the building. It is a corner lot, and we feel that this location is the least impactful in terms of visibility and so forth, is locating that parking east of the building where the parking will serve as a buffer to that intersection. We are removing 2 curb cuts, which only leaves us 1 on site, which further restricts the parking locations. I would point out that McDonald's, which is directly across Victory Parkway to the west, does have parking in a very similar situation on their west side yard. It actually fronts on Victory, but it is their side yard. The office building across McMillan also has parking in their side yard. So it's not out of characteristic with the adjacent community. We're also asking for a special exception from 1409-23, which has to do with ground floor transparency that's required. Right now, it's required to be 50% on both McMillan and Victory. We are requesting a special exception to allow for 39% on McMillan and 28% transparency on Victory. We submitted building elevations for your review and consideration. On the McMillan elevation, the building is only 28 feet wide. And they're proposing to have a double glass door and then a single glass door with a glass side light. And both of those doors then are going to have glass transoms. So that's pretty much maxed out that elevation in terms of transparency. On the Victory elevation, there are windows in the customer dining area, which is at the south end of the building, again, toward McMillan. And then there are 3 large sections of glass in the middle, which is like where the counter is and where the pickup window would be, and those things. But the north end of the building is, back of house for a Chipotle. So it's the kitchen, it's the walk-in cooler, it's the storage, it's their operations center, scheduling, and that kind of thing. And it really does not lend itself to having additional transparency in that part of the building. So we feel that they've made their best attempt at where they can put transparency on the building. Standards for special exceptions per section 1445-19, with the exceptions noted, the application will be consistent with the purposes of the CCM district and the zoning code. They will not, special exceptions will not diminish the value of the property within the neighborhood and will significantly improve the site over existing conditions. Special exceptions are requested, which will not negatively impact the public health, safety, or welfare. They will be harmonious with the adjacent areas I've mentioned, surrounding land uses and so forth. With the exceptions of the items identified, the proposed development will comply with the standards of the zoning code. And then if it's appropriate, just for the record, I would go through the general standards, if you would like for me to do that. Just for the record. So pursuant to the requirements of section 1445-13, we would offer the following, that the zoning of the property is CCM district, and with the exceptions, again, as I mentioned and noted, it is in harmony with the purpose and the intent of the zoning code. We believe that the Chipotle conforms with the guidelines adopted by council, with the exception of the requests being made. The plans that are applicable to this general area, not specifically on point with this site, but in the general area, obviously would be Plan Cincinnati, which has statements in it concerning attracting more diverse housing and employment options. Specifically, Chipotle, who uses only fresh ingredients, complements the section of Plan Cincinnati, which says sustained goal of providing fresh and healthy food being a priority in all neighborhoods. Chipotle doesn't have any freezers or can openers. They don't use preservatives, so we feel that goes a long way to providing fresh food in this portion of the Walnut Hills community. In the 2017 Walnut Hills Reinvestment Plan, it was estimated that there are about 10,000 workers in Walnut Hills and another 24,000 workers within a 5-mile drive of People's Corner. The plan indicated that the spending of this group, it was on coffee, lunch, and other daily needs, and that the plan supported an additional 100,000 square feet of retail in the Walnut Hills community, which is directly adjacent to this area. And the consumer preference quoted in the plan indicated a stronger than average preference for both fast food and organic food options in the community. And we think that Chipotle speaks to that for the Walnut Hills business community. Well, relative to traffic, we have been working with DOTE, and they are obviously very happy that we're closing 2 full curb cuts close to this busy intersection. So we're going to have one, as I mentioned, one curb cut on this site on McMillan, and then across access to use a access point on Victory, which is owned by Skyline. In terms of buffering, given the uses that are around the subject property, we're doing streetscape landscaping and those kinds of things, but we don't feel that any, quote, buffering is necessary from either the Skyline to the east and north, or Victory and the McDonald's to the west, or the office to the south. But in terms of landscaping, we are going to be landscaping the site. We have submitted a landscape plan for your consideration, which exceeds the landscape requirements of the code, planting trees, shrubs, and then different types of perennials like catmint and switchgrass and so forth. Hours of operation for the proposed Chipotle will be from 10:45 a.m. to 10 p.m. That is, I would point out, fewer hours than land uses such as the McDonald's or the Marathon catty corner from the subject property.
And on the landscaping, did you talk? Are you still requesting the variance for the landscaping around the refuse?
Yeah.
storage area?
Yeah, and I sure Trey will. That came out after I had already made my submission. And the waste enclosure is going to be surrounded by asphalt and by a retaining wall, so it is simply not possible to landscape that. It will be in the northeast corner of the building, so it won't be terribly visible from either street frontage.
Is that so? What about the west side? I understand the east side of the refuge storage area, and the east property line has that retaining wall, but is the other side of the refuge storage area, the west side, is that
It-
going to be?
It probably will be somewhat visible, but again, it's pushed all the way up into the corner of the site. But there's pavement immediately adjacent to that, so you really short of putting in some pots or something, which you'd have watering problems with. It really isn't practical to put landscaping on that side.
Okay.
Let's see, where was I now? Hours of operation. Yes, neighborhood compatibility. So we believe that the proposed addition of the quality fast casual dining option provides another dining opportunity for those living and working in the area. There is no Chipotle immediately available in this area, so we feel it will complement the existing residents immediately adjacent in the vicinity of the site. We don't believe there are any known zoning amendments to the zoning code that are proposed that would impact the development. We don't believe there's any adverse impact on access to the site by fire, police, et cetera, or damage to access to light, air, to adjacent property owners, traffic conditions, et cetera. Rather, we believe that the redevelopment of the site, the removal of the existing vacant structures, and the improvements to access, reducing the number of curb cuts, is actually an improvement to adjacent properties and community. Relative to blight, the properties really are not blighted at this point in time, but it's not the best thing to have two vacant buildings in a community like this, the Taco Casa and the Ace Cash Express. So removing these removes the potential for any future blight that might occur at that corner. The economic benefits is the removal of these two vacant structures and then the development of the Chipotle restaurant, which will be an economic contributor to the Walnut Hills community and the Cincinnati economy. In terms of job creation, there'll be a total of 35 to 40 jobs, both full and part-time, as a part of the Chipotle, and these are new jobs that are coming to the neighborhood. We're also anticipating 20 to 30 construction jobs over the course of the development. Tax valuation, the previous annual real estate taxes paid on the property were $10,900. That was for the two buildings. Obviously, late last year, as I mentioned, the two parcels were consolidated. With the development of the Chipotle, Mr. Mitchell is expecting that his tax bill is probably going to go up, which obviously means more money for the city. In terms of private benefits, obviously the property owner, 2516 East McMillan LLC, will obviously benefit from the redevelopment, as they are hopeful also so would their Skyline restaurant, which is directly adjacent. In terms of public benefits, we feel that there are significant benefits to allowing for the redevelopment of this parcel to happen. First of all, as I've mentioned, the redevelopment of the two vacant older buildings, which are no longer contributing to the community, the removal of the potential for blight from these vacant structures on the site, the addition of 30 to 40 full and part-time jobs in the community, the development of an attractive, active site versus a vacant site that could require more attention from safety officials and so forth in the area. The creation of another eating establishment, which, as I mentioned, is currently not available in Walnut Hills, and then the elimination, obviously, of the two full curb cuts from the site. We have submitted letters of support from a number of adjacent property owners, Talbert House, St. Anthony of Padua, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, and then City Center Properties all submitted applications supporting the proposed development. Also, we have letters from East Walnut Hills Community and Walnut Hills Area Council, which are have identified each of the requests that are before you today and supportive of all of those. With the support of adjacent property owners and with the community, we believe that we have met the standards and requirements for the different variances, conditional uses, and special exceptions. So we would ask for favorable consideration of the application. And I'll stop talking.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ann. Appreciate that presentation. Quick question. I do see, looks like on the corner, but more the Victory Parkway side, there is a large mature tree and then a younger tree. Are those going to be kept as a part of this redevelopment?
I believe that the intention, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the intention is they are to stay.
That is correct.
Yeah, I would concur as well. Those are out in the city right away, won't be altered at all.
Okay, got it. Thanks. All right. Did anyone else from the applicant or owner team want to say anything before we move to the zoning department? If Mike, you're on mute.
No, I just appreciate everyone's time and consideration. We put a lot of time and effort and money already into this project, and we had a lot of interest in this corner, but nothing of the magnitude of a Chipotle that we believe is a perfect fit for Walnut Hills in terms of providing great meal alternatives. We don't think there's enough restaurants in the community, and they're the type of tenant that allowed us to do this. It gave us the support and financing to be able to do this kind of development, as opposed to keeping the existing buildings there and trying to repurpose those buildings, which we didn't think was appropriate for the corner or the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Trey. Trey, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, well, first of all, it's always a pleasure to work with Anne, because she manages to be both thorough and succinct at the same time, which are two excellent dovetailing qualities. So usually I just have to put some icing on the cake. Anyhow, in this particular instance, pun intended, this site was very much driven by traffic. The site plan was very much driven by traffic related matters. This went through coordinated site review quite some time ago. And I pretty much had to park myself as far as zoning, or just, being a holding pattern as they worked out, Jonathan and others worked out, their development team worked out matters with DOTE. I would point out, it's something we had actually discussed previously at some point, David, is that this kind of coincided with the changing of both McMillan and East McMillan and William Howard Taft from a one-way condition to a two-way condition. So it really changed traffic flow patterns, and so the timing was pretty much perfect for this to be worked out with DOTE at the same time. They were concerned about especially the second, the curb cuts that Ann mentioned, the existing curb cuts. The one that was closest to the corner was, quite frankly, a danger, because that had people leaving the existing drive-through and just like right at the corner, which is just a recipe for accidents. And they also were concerned about traffic flow, especially with the change to both William Howard Taft and traffic flow patterns on both William Howard Taft and on McMillan. They were concerned about the side curb cut along Victory Parkway. It just so happened that the perfect solution was the fact that Mr. Misley and his Mr. Misley owns the adjacent lot, but to the east and north, and it was possible to have a means of egress further up Victory Parkway via an easement. It allows it to be in a more safe condition for DOTE. So that really, the other thing is that, frankly, with the visibility, this is a busy intersection. You have traffic on both streets. There's no one side. I mean, McMillan may have slightly more traffic than Victory Parkway, but there's no side street here. These are both major arterials. And I think they had this existing curb cut that DOTE deemed safe, for that, and then preferable for the flow of the queuing for vehicles. Even though it's a pickup window, not a drive-through, you're still going to have vehicles there, and it really keeps things from backing up onto McMillan and causing further dangers. So once you have those in play, it's really, I'm just talking to the site. Ideally, in this zoning district, if the zoning district continued for all four corners, the ideal situation is where you have things that occupy all the way out to the corner, but where there are not, the other corners do not have buildings all built to it. you default to simply the setback. So that speaks to the kind of the dimensional variance aspect of that. I would point out that they decided to put an outdoor eating and drinking outdoor area here, which is very much in keeping with the goals of the district. And so I would submit that if the purpose of having a building closer to the street is to engage pedestrians, well, you are engaging pedestrians here. It's just not the building; it's the outdoor area is creating the interface with that. There's a crosswalk, a private crosswalk that allows people to come from McMillan from the sidewalk and come up over to the outdoor eating area. So that does support the goal in this district of having engagement with the street. One other point with the site here, as far as that goes, is the buildings that are around it. Nan's touched on that, but I would call this is like the intersection of nonconformities here. I mean, technically in the district, none of these things should or would be allowed to be here. The McDonald's is in a T5 and SS district that doesn't even allow, it's now in form-based code. So when they did the form-based code for the corridor there along with McMillan, they went all the way to this intersection. But the McDonald's basically couldn't be there where it is, so it's non-conforming. The gas station and car wash are not permitted uses at all in form-based code, so you couldn't even have that use there at all. And the adjacent building with the existing buildings are non-conforming. The skyline is non-conforming in that it's got to drive through in the same situation. It's back from the street. And then across the way in an office district, you have an office building with a parking lot that would require a 20-foot setback and landscaping and so on there, because technically the frontage is the shorter for zoning anyhow. The front of that office building, yes, it's on Victory Parkway, as I mentioned, but for zoning, the front is the shorter side. And so that corner is non-conforming because it's got a parking lot built all the way up to the lot line. So essentially everything here is kind of a motley as far as that goes. So I just wanted to point that out, that this development is consistent in that context, because it's kind of unrealistic expectation that with this kind of visibility, I bet you there's some kind of gas station there when we're all not here anymore. There's probably going to be a McDonald's or another some sort of food driven place. And the McDonald's site will probably be a McDonald's still for the next, however decades. And so it's completely compatible with the conditions that surround it. As far as you mentioned a couple things that bear mentioning, you spoke of the landscaping not being provided on the west side of the enclosure. Well, this is actually the perfect place for the enclosure. There's a wall, about 6 foot to 7 foot tall wall. Major change in topography. So that's really another site characteristic there. If they were to they have an excess of parking at Skyline. If they were to change this around, I mean, it could have made this economically feasible if they made this truly a larger lot by selling off and subdividing part of the lot next door. You would have had a major deal engineering to deal with the fact that these are on completely different topographies here. So with that in mind, they've snuggled this kind of fit this enclosure back into that corner with walls on the wall to the north and wall to the east. And then obviously landscaping is not expected where the gate is, but they had to put reasonably here with the traffic coming through here, because the queue comes through here. They put a crosswalk on there, a private crosswalk specifically for the employees to get across. And I know that's a paramount concern. That was something that was mentioned, I think, during the CSR or whatever, as a consequence with DOTE, because they're about safety and traffic safety. And you don't want an employee trying to take out the garbage here and get hit by somebody that is desperate for their burrito. So you basically have that west side of it, and the crosswalk on the west side is a hashed area, kind of like you'd have for a handicap spot, if you will. And that enables the employee to safely walk across there to the dumpster, go in the man gate or person gate, and put the garbage in through the side into the dumpsters without having to open the, the gates that Rumpke would open, the big gates, and unlatch them and all that. So it made practical sense to me. And as far as approval, I think it'd be unreasonable to expect them to put azaleas over there when that's where the employee has to get into the area. I think unless there's anything else you really have, I mean, as I said, I think this was all basically, the site was sort of set up based upon how you had to have traffic flow. And I did have two conditions in there, which is that we need a covenant for parking on that, the north lot that Mr. Mislett owns. It is a separate parcel from the, although it's used with Skyline, it is a separate parcel. So that covenant and the easement will both have to mention that specific parcel, as it will be the burdened, a pertinent parcel. We'll have to get those recorded prior to permitting for me to sign off. Even once this is approved, you need to get those in for me as a condition, and I think David will back those up as well. That you need to get those need to be finalized and recorded prior to issuance, final permit approval. Anything?
Okay.
Any questions or anything?
No,
else?
I don't think so. I didn't, on the refuse area, I didn't notice the actual door, sort of pedestrian door opening on the west side. So that makes sense.
Do you see the hash there? I think it's
Makes
in
more
my
sense there. Yeah, as I
it's
zoom
on-
in on the site plan, I can see it.
it's on the site plan. You can see it. It's
assumed
very
they'd be
similar.
going in.
Yeah, it's
from the
super
south.
similar to a handicap. You know what I mean? Handicap. A safe means of not being injured.
Yeah. Okay. Nope, I don't have any other questions. Anything from anyone on the applicant owner team in response to anything Trey has said, or anything else in closing or otherwise before we adjourn?
No, I think, can you hear me? I'm unmuted,
Yep.
right?
You are. Yeah.
I think that has been recorded, and I'll confirm that, but I think our lawyers had that recorded. It's been signed and recorded in the courthouse, I believe.
What did that go through a review from the city law department at all? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
If I can jump in, Trey, remember I sent that to you and I asked, should I send it to somebody specific at the law department? And you said that I think it was David that is the one that's supposed to review those.
Yeah,
and
I'll double check on that because
yeah, you were going to send it on to him. So I didn't get anything back, but I assumed that that was all said and done. So Mike, that might not be recorded because the city, if David hasn't seen it, I can send it again if that would be helpful, Trey.
Oh, that's all right. I mean, there's time because you would just the way it works for me for a condition like this, that only has to happen before the final sign off on the permit. Like you basically can't get a final like a CO, basically a certificate of occupancy for the place until you've done that. So I imagine it's going to take it many months to build this. So
You have to wait for your burrito then.
Yeah.
I just want to thank Trey too for all his help with this because he's always great to work with. So
Yeah, I appreciate you and David as well here today. Thank you very much. And Ann, you've been great, and so's Jonathan. Couldn't do it without you.
Okay. Appreciate that. I haven't had a chance to, and let's leave it at that for now. I've had a chance to review the application materials and the staff report. Based on that, based on the testimony that I've heard here today, I am going to approve the application in full. I am going to attach the conditions that are recommended in the staff report about the easement and the covenant. I review a lot of those. I don't believe that I've looked at this one. If it has been recorded already, if I can still review that, and if there's no changes, that will be sufficient. We can make a note in our record, but if there are changes, you may have to re-record it or just re-record a different instrument with any suggested changes. So that shouldn't be a heavy lift, but I will attach those conditions. I think everyone's been through this process before, if I remember correctly, but I need to formalize my decision in a written approval. That typically takes about 2 weeks. As soon as I finish that, I put into a PDF and I email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. So you all will have a copy of that just really moments after it's complete. From there, you can work with Trey on the permitting. Any questions about any of this? Okay.
No.
Nope, we'll
Just
see
so
you
that
next time.
The way I usually handle that with when we have some kind of pending legal thing that just needs to be wrapped up, I will usually do on the building permit something called a CNAP, or a conditional approval, and that allows you to go ahead and proceed with work on the project. And you just have to get that done, and that we'll just have to get that wrapped up in a timely enough manner that that you wouldn't be to the point where you were seeking a certificate of occupancy and a final sign off from an inspector, from building inspector. But that there's plenty of time to make sure that everything's done properly here. So
We'll make sure it's done properly.
all right.
All right. Well, thank you all again for your time today. Hope you have a good day. If you have any questions, please let me know. We are adjourned. Thanks.
Thanks very much.